What's up, folks? This is Dan from Discern, and welcome to episode 20 of the Discern Recap. Thank you for joining me. On this show, I bring you my recommendations of the best new albums, EPs, or singles from the broad category of Christian music. Each week, I wade through a myriad of releases and try to unearth the gems, the best of the best. New episodes of this show release every Wednesday. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. I mean it when I say it is the best way for you to make sure you don't miss any new episodes. When they're uploaded, they get delivered right to your subscription page. Easy peasy. If you have a question or a comment for me, you can comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews. You could email me, discernreviews@gmail.com. We made it to 20 episodes so far. Seriously, that is a surprise to me. I did not think I could continue, pushing on this long, but God has been gracious. He's given me strength. He's given me the will to keep pushing. There's been some late nights, some sleepy eyes for sure. And thank you for being such an interactive community. Seriously, whether through comments, emails, Twitter, you folks are not to be taken for granted. So thank you. You really make this community happen. This week I have one recommendation, just one. You've seen it in the title of this video already. Rivers and Robots, The Eternal Son. Rivers and Robots is a band that I've mentioned before on this channel. It is a four-piece indie rock and dream pop group from Manchester, UK, creating worship music in a style all their own. It's Nazi instrumentation and coastal pop vibes that are unique to Rivers and Robots. But the lightly sung vocals from Jonathan Ogden, the psalmic structure of the arrangements, and the smoothly strutting pop rhythms and grooves, all these features blend together to create really a one-of-a-kind worship music sound. I mean, by no means is this CCM, but lyrically, these are worship songs. They're scriptural, they're direct responses to God, songs of praise. Something that could easily be sung by your local church, This new album, The Eternal Son, has been a few years in the making. Their last release was back in 2014, and while I have some beefs about the sound, just some, which I will talk about a little later, I am very pleased by this record. It's a blissful, carefree listening experience, but also has genuine substance in the lyrics and very careful arrangements. It's kind of one of those albums you could have on in the background, of a gathering of friends, or it's just as easily enjoyed alone, intimately examining the lyrics and the beauty of the music. So let's get into the deets here. To compare this album to their previous release, All Things New, from a couple years ago, you see a noticeable progression and change of pace. Things have quickened a bit. They've gotten more energetic. Just a little. This is Rivers and Robots after all. There's a few more spritzes of rock and pop and electronic-oriented tones and instruments. The last album was much more open, more isolated, much more of an uncluttered sound. A lot more songs with acoustic instrumentation, numerous tracks without drums at all, or featured for just a few moments. This album, The Eternal Son, has drums featured all over the place. There's much less use of acoustic or organic instrumentation. There's a noticeable push towards a bigger sound. The tracks are more full, they're more layered. The instruments too really play out and give it some oomph at times. I've said it before in a previous video, I love the single Wait For You from this album. I'll link that episode of the Discern Recap on the screen and in the description if you want to hear more about that single in particular. But that single, just as blissful as ever as the opening track to this album. The single Who Is Like Our God, it's a more majestic and expansive track, also a very good single. And the title track, The Eternal Son, it was not a single, but if you took the extended instrumental outro, took that out, I totally could have seen this as a viable single as well. Very easygoing and swinging, fantastic saxophone performance, just floats around, totally weightless, and has a really uplifting and lively electric guitar line in the latter half of the track. I thought this album had more pop snares and catchy hooks than their previous releases, well, as catchy and poppy music this chill can actually be. These aren't earworms that you can't get out of your head, but they're pleasant, they're simple grooves, rooted in a very palpable delight and joy. But I do have to say, I was a little disappointed with the bigger moments. I thought they never really fully delivered. They felt like they had just one foot forward, one foot into this bolder sound, and the other foot was still back in their relaxed, dreamy, silky pop sound. And when they sort of rode the fence between those two sounds, I just didn't think it delivered as well as if they settled into one or the other. Personally, I would love for them to plant both feet in that more energetic direction, if only for a few tracks, sharpen the edges a bit, add a little dirt, be a little more emphatic in their accents and dynamics, make the highs a bit higher, and in contrast, let the lows feel even lower. By no means do I want them to abandon their sweet and wispy indie pop jams. I'm just wanting them to stretch their borders a bit, reach a little bit into uncharted territory. And on songs like Fullness of God, A Love That Carries Me, the closing track, Jesus Your Blood, I felt like the grandest, most powerful moments were hamstrung a bit, They were held back. They didn't fully embrace the wave, take it to that next level. Some pieces did, for sure. That's the one foot in that I'm talking about. The guitars had big reverberated sounds. The bass had plenty of movement and pep, but the vocals, stayed in their reserved, breathy sound. Their delivery, never really pushing the air or forcing it. And the drums, while performed in a way I think that sounded pretty big and pretty adventurous, were mixed into sounding smaller and more contained. They were more muffled than what felt natural. The whole mix just didn't sound wide. It didn't quite have the harmonic and dynamic variance that I was hoping for in those grand, big moments. It didn't sound as colorful or as vivid as the arrangements and the performances implied. Now, I'm not knocking the sound too strongly because I didn't feel this way throughout. Like I said a few minutes ago, I was digging this album. On some level, I think I would actually be okay if on future releases these guys never really do expand their horizons or develop their sound, become a little more broad and more dynamic. I think Rivers and Robots has carved out a really special and singular corner of worship music. The vocals from Jonathan Ogden are just characteristically identifiable. There's nothing else quite like it. So the way they tend to develop a jam and perform it, with such smoothness and grace, it's the essence of dreamy indie rock and pop. I think they absolutely nail that sound. And I think I'm generally okay with them staying put there. I would like to see, some exploration every now and then. I'm always a fan of seeing artists try new things, express themselves in more varied and unexpected ways. But in the future, if they go big, I kind of want it to be sort of go big or go home instead of one foot in and one foot out. Just jump all in or stay completely out. Get a little edgy or keep those corners smooth and rounded off. I'm really down for either. Overall, I really enjoyed this record. I didn't think it was perfect. There's some room for improvement, but that's life. That's part of being a creative person, always growing, always fleshing out new ideas, seeing what works and what doesn't work. This is a solid record from Rivers and Robots, a solid addition to their outstanding catalog. In fact, I would argue that this is their most mature and most well-developed record to date. If you're a fan of chill pop or just a fan of these guys, this is a release you don't want to miss, seriously. And taking a step back a bit, I think this album will probably grow on me. It really actually has started to over the last few listens through. I find myself settling in a bit into that vibe, settling in rather than feeling a pull toward what I think it should be. I'm finding myself settling into what it is, rather than what I think it was attempting to be. Maybe it's the chill vibes just dulling my senses and drowning me in the warm atmosphere. 3 tracks, 3 of my favorite tracks. It is hard to pick 3 on this album. You already know that I like the single Wait For You, which I've mentioned before. 3 other tracks for you to dip your toes in: High Priest, the song Home, and the title track, The Eternal Sun. And with that, just one recommendation. We come to the end of episode 20. Thank you for watching the Discern recap. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. New episodes of this show release every Wednesday. A whole new batch, or sometimes just a singular batch, of new music recommendations coming to you each week. If you have a question, comment, a suggestion, if you want to vent a bit about a new album you recently heard, if you want to sing the praises of a new record you recently, you're chomping at the bit to share, you can comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews, or you could send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. Did you listen to this album from Rivers and Robots? If so, do you agree with my long-winded analysis? Do you disagree? Why not? Let me know what you're thinking. Anyway, I hope this helped. See ya.